There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out, slowly feel all that's around you, all that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah, when we unite. Yeah, yeah. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
Yay, yay, yay. We are high, we are high, we are here, we are high, and we are here, and we are back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good day to you, wherever you are at this very moment in time. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning into yourself first. And as you tune into yourself, you get to listen to that still small voice, to the voice of the divine, the voice of truth, the voice of transformation. Don't leave home without it. When you take it with you, when you connect with it, when you align with it, You make yourself available for transformation. I am Ade, your transformational beingness artist. Welcome to another episode of Being You. Ade Presents Being You, the journey back to yourself. And we are reminded that the divine is saying to us every day, always, in all ways, I am present, I am here, I am now. So whenever you're looking for God, the universe, whatever, you feel like you're lost, remember the universe, the divine, God, Allah, Buddha, Yeshua is saying to you, I am present, I am here, I am now. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 17. Today is Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. The theme for the month is Liberating the Souls of Africans in the Diaspora and the Motherland. And all the shows we've done, or the events that I've done this month, has been about that, because it is important to liberate ourselves from the BS. That's what it is. When you liberate yourself from the BS, you're reminded that the BS is fertilizer for your growth. So then you're not so depressed by the BS. You allow the BS to grow you. And the Being You podcast is an invitation. Is an invitation for you to take a look at yourself. It's an invitation for me to slow down. Take a look at yourself and ask, how do I see myself? So how do you see yourself? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself in the world? And how do you see the world in you? Don't ask that question in the middle of a grocery store. I mean, you can, but I feel like you can get so much more out of it when you're in a place of stillness. So maybe you can practice stillness while you're grocery shopping. While you're in there pushing the cart, looking at your list. I don't know. I doubt it, but maybe. How do I see myself? How do I see myself in the world? How do I see the world? How do I see the world in me? Wait for what's to come up. Today's topic is spiritual liberation. You can't stay, Pat. Pat is on Instagram. She said, I can't stay, but I wanted to come in and say, hey, that's okay. Oh, he's a poet and he knows it. So because he's a poet and he knows it, the next sentence is not going to rhyme unless he just wants to make him rhyme. We invite you to go to our main Facebook page. Now you can get us on YouTube as well. Facebook.com/Being You podcast. That's the main page where we can see your questions and your comments. And it helps if you have questions and comments and you're on another link, because we've shared this link in different platforms. We may not see your question, so bear that in mind. But if you have a question you want us to address, a comment that you want us to speak to, go to I got something in my eyes, Facebook.com/Being You podcast, or YouTube, especially those of you who are on IG. My guest, Rev Thandi, is here. You won't be able to see her because I haven't quite figured out. Actually, there's something right now. Let me not go into all that. You won't be able to see her today. So if you really want to see Rev Thandi as well, I invite you to go to youtube.com/LC radio. And that, so you can see everything that's going on in the house. And speaking about seeing everything and having people join us, Kathy's in the house. Kathy said, I don't care what happens. I'm going to be in the front row. She's been sitting in the front row in the front of the studio since about 6 a.m. her time. She had a breakfast in front of the studio. New Jay's is like, I know exactly when this show starts. I have my seat reserved. And then those of you that are watching on Instagram and those of you who we call silent listeners, silent viewers, thank you all for being here. Feel free to share your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your ideas. Real quick, let me knock out this announcement. For those of you who have a podcast, thinking of starting a podcast, maybe just like, I don't know. How do you go about it? Well, one thing you're going to need is I don't know what's going on with my eyes. It's a podcast hosting site. And if you need one of those, I suggest you check out libsyn.com. Libsyn. Check that out. And if you do decide to sign up with libsyn.com, it is very important to use the promo code ADE because I'm just generous like that. Use my name and you get benefits. What a difference Ade makes. I'm just saying. And what kind of benefits would you get? Well, if you sign up if you're going to sign up today, don't sign up, but you get at least 1 month free. And the best time to sign up is after the first of the month, which means if you sign up on the 2nd of May, you will get the whole of May free and then the whole of June free. If you sign up right now, the 27th of April, you have the rest of the month, like 3 days free, and then the whole of May. So, and you must use the promo code. All right. You must use the promo code ADE. All right. What else do I need to tell you? I need to tell you about my show with my dear friend, my sister, Ricky Byers. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. UK time. Soulful songs and soulful conversations. Every Wednesday with Ricky Byers and myself. Also, I want to let you know an event that I am presenting, that I'm holding space for, called Representing Our Ancestors, Representing Our Stories. It's a 3-part series. We had the first one this past Saturday, which was all about grief ritual, grieving and releasing and opening ourselves up to so much more and allowing our hearts to defrost, to soften, to open, to more, so we can represent our ancestors in a new way. We can represent ourselves in a new way, and we can open ourselves up to more of life. It was powerful. I really can say I am changed, literally. I'm thinking of Ricky's song, I'm changed. God is first in my life. I am changed. And the changing and the shifting continues. So next one is May 15th. The theme for that is telling a new story. You can go to my website, lifecoachade.com/event. But when you get to lifecoachade.com, you fill in my, if you want, it's an invitation. Put your name on the mailing list. I'm going to start sending out information about that soon, so you can register, get your space, place, whatever you want to do. If you want to join us, register somebody else if you want to. And it's a 3-part series, as I said. So the next one is May 15th, and then the last one is June 19th, the last one for this segment. There's more to come because we're constantly representing our ancestors, representing our stories. And the final one on this first series is a vision of a new generation. So we're creating a new reality, and we are taking our power back. We are changing the narratives, and no matter how much you see on social media about what's going on in the world, and it looks like some people are just gung-ho of snuffing out Black people, killing Black people, pretending they're not oppressing, there's another way we can be about this. We're spiritual beings, and we're all spiritual beings. This one is specifically for people of African descent, and we all have ancestors, and we all got to do the work we need to do if we want to clear up all this BS. So just letting you know, it's almost time to bring on my guest. I'm so excited, and there's so much. What's the theme today? Spiritual liberation. That's what it's about. Let me read. Let me make sure everything is as it needs to be. Kwali is in the house. Welcome, Kwali. Thank you for being here. And everybody else. Let's just take a deep breath in. And breathe out. Let's take another deep breath. And breathe out. Your breath is your connection to the divine. It is your connection to your ancestors. It is your connection to ancient wisdom. You're never separated from it. You're never separated from who you really are. So when you find yourself feeling lost and confused, stop and take a deep breath. When you're joyful and happy and grateful and feeling all kind of pleasure in your body, take a deep breath because it takes you to the next level. When you look at the news or here or in South Africa where they're celebrating Freedom Day and you're one of those people say, what Freedom Day? We ain't free. We ain't free. Take a deep breath. Because if you can free yourself in that moment, we can be free. But if you're like, we ain't free, you're adding more to the freedom that ain't happening. Don't mess with me. I'm on fire now and I got backup. I got backup, Rev Thandi. Let me read her bio because it's ready. I'm ready to jump in. Rev Thandi Nhlengetwa. She is an international metaphysical teacher specializing in African spirituality. She's a unity minister and founder of Unity Center of Love and Light in South Africa. To find out more about what she's doing, what she's creating, her website address is Unity Love Light, unitylovelight.co.za or ZA, depending on where you are in the world. unitylovelight.co.za or ZA. Just Google it. Unity Love and Light Center in South Africa. You'll find it. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, psychics and skeptics, physical beings and non-physical beings, help me welcome my dear sister, my friend, myself, Reverend Thandi Nhlengetwa. How are you doing, my dear sister?
Hi, Brother Ade, son of the soil.
Yes.
Great spiritual warrior. I am doing well. Thank you on this beautiful Freedom Day for South Africa. And thank you for inviting me. It is an honor and a pleasure to be, it always will be, on this beautiful being you.
Yes.
I love it. And especially on this day, celebrating our Freedom Day in South Africa.
Yes. It's always good to have you. You know, in Nigeria,
Thank you.
There is something that we call Oriki, which is spelled Oriki. And the Oriki is some things that mostly parents do it too, but it's sort of like a praise to a son or daughter and saying, you're the son of so-and-so. So they go back in the lineage and they keep saying the son of this, who did this, and the son of that, the daughter of that. They just keep praising. By the time they finish, your head is like, ooh, it's like, ooh, my head is so big, I better sit down.
And you know, Ade, and you know, Ade, we also have it in our Zulu culture. It's called Izibongo. You know, Izithakazelo, where they actually call the names of your ancestors. Not only call their names, but all the hero, you know, the deeds, the great deeds that they've done. You know what they have conquered and what they did, and they call them in order, you know, as praises for you. You know, the person who are called by them, because you carry those in your DNA.
Yes.
So that's your spiritual lineage.
Yes. That just makes me emotional, just feeling all of that. And I get that feeling when I talk to you, when you say the son of African soil. I'm like, the first time I heard you say that, I was like, yes, that's who I am. I know who I am. I could do this.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yes. We're so proud of the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Happy Freedom Day.
That's it. Happy Freedom Day.
Not only to South Africa, because we are all interconnected. We are all one.
Yes.
So happy Freedom Day to all of us.
Yes. You know, this is part. Well, actually, I can't even. Let me say it differently. Ooh, hold on a minute. I'm feeling so much right now. Just a reminder that everything we need, and I don't want to say it like a cliche, that the God is right here within us. Our ancestors are right here. The answer, the freedom we seek is right here. And I do believe we have to cultivate the mindset and the heart set so we can align with the freedom. But in that moment, I just felt a rush and I needed to slow down. But what I want to continue saying is, so the theme for this month is liberating the soul of Africans in the diaspora and the motherland.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And
yes.
For this month, this is the last show of the month. We're going to have a new theme next month. And you are sort of wrapping it up and bringing it, like, put it in a nice bowl so we can release it into the ethers. And the ironic thing about this is you and I had a conversation, I think around February, which inspired this theme for me. You know, you're working on a workshop called Liberate Your Soul.
Your soul. Yes.
And we didn't plan this date, where everything just sort of worked out. And then it turns out that it's on the Freedom Day for South Africa. And I'm going to throw this over to you because I feel like I feel like something is happening and my voice is going. But I want to ask you, when you think of liberating the souls of Africans, I don't know what's going on. When you think of liberating I know what's going on, liberating the souls of Africans in the diaspora and the motherland, what does that mean to you? What does that mean? What do you want people to take from that?
Okay. Oh, that's a very a good question, Ade. I want to start by affirming that, firstly, as Africans, we must first just throw away the idea that we were slaves. We were not slaves, we were enslaved. We were enslaved. Because once we realized that we were enslaved, the problem is not with us. The problem is with the people who enslaved us.
Yes.
And we take our power back. We take our power back. And the first thing that we need to understand with this mentality that we have been enslaved is to actually decolonize the concept of God that has been thrown upon us.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the Western concept of God. Because the Western concept of God disempowers us.
Yes, indeed.
As African people. And you see, the concept of God is central. It's central to our spiritual freedom. Our concept of God is central to our identity.
Yes. Yes.
It's central to our identity because, the soul always aspires to identify itself with what is higher than itself.
Yes.
Now, if we take what is higher than ourselves as a white man in the sky, far from us, looking down on us, judging us, that's a Western concept of God. Now, the African concept of God, which is what empowers us, is realizing firstly, we have to realize our spiritual identity. It's the concept of God of our ancestors. Our ancestors saw and knew the presence of God in all of nature. The presence of God in the sun, and there was no difference between nature and us. We as part of the universal creative process of nature.
Yes.
So the African concept of God is not based on separation. It is based on the spirituality of oneness. And the concept of God, it's not a God that is out there separate from us. And in our language, even as we speak, the names of God are descriptive of the presence. They are descriptive of the eternal presence of every individual. And I want to give an example here, and I will use my language, isiZulu. When we talk of the that which is both transcendent and also innate within us. It's one.
Yes.
And so we call God an essence. It doesn't have a name. It's not the name of a person. So we call God uNkulunkulu. It begins with an U. And Nkulunkulu is that which is greater and greater and the greatest. And the prefix there is the U. And now, when I am calling Ade in my language, I will start by saying U Ade. U Thandi. We'll start using the U. And so that in the language itself reflects the oneness. So the name of God is actually innate in you. The presence is in you, even as we speak it. And so once we had this notion that God is out there in the sky, we took an African concept of God that was in our hearts and put it out there where we don't know, out there in the sky.
Right.
And then we brought in this concept of the devil messing with our lives.
You better preach. Go ahead.
You know,
yes.
Messing with our lives, and some notion to blame for things that aren't going right in our lives. But again, when you look, I will talk of the languages, in South Africa, isiZulu and Sesotho. If you look in our dictionaries, in the words that we use, there is no word for the devil. There is no word in our language, isiZulu, for the devil. You see, the people will use what we call imifagela. Imifagela is words that are borrowed from another language. And then they try and put it in us. So the first thing, when I'm thinking of soul liberation, is to liberate ourselves from such notions of a foreign God
Yes.
Because it disempowers us.
Yes. Of a
And
foreign
liberate.
God.
Yes, it's a foreign God. It's not our God. It doesn't, we've identified with what disempowers us. So check your concept of God, because your concept of God will determine the relationship that you have with yourself.
I'm trying to tweet everything, every bomb you're dropping, but I can't even type quick enough.
Yes, because you see, once we have this jealous God, this violent God that bans people in the, violence is being preached from the pulpits, this God that bans people in the eternal flame, then automatically we take on these attributes that are foreign to our philosophy, our African philosophy of Ubuntu.
Yes. And the truth of who
You
we
see,
are.
no father would do that, to their child and just put them in eternal flames and all that. So we need to liberate ourselves from this concept so that we can embrace ourselves and know that we are gods.
Yes. Yes.
We are gods, sons and daughters of the Most High. And as African people, we stand in our power. After being enslaved, after colonization, after all those that had been perpetrated against the African people, here we still stand.
We're still standing, we're still rise.
Yes, here we still stand. And so when we think of ourselves as now separate from God, we think of ourselves also as separate from one another. And I like, last Sunday, I asked my congregants, what is the difference between independence and freedom? Because in South Africa, this day we call Freedom Day, right? And in America, their Freedom Day, you call them Independence Day.
Correct.
Yes, and I'm like, okay, why some countries are saying Independence Day and we are saying Freedom Day? And I contemplated on the difference between independence and freedom. You see, independence is more individualistic. To be independent, the dictionary says not to be under the control of anyone.
Right.
To do as you please, to be self-reliant, to self-determination. Independence, it's good is there is independence.
Right.
And independence entailing political freedom, economic freedom. But when it comes to freedom is much more broader than independence. Much more broader, and I just want to quote, the difference between independence and freedom in the words of the father of our nation, Nelson Mandela. He said, "For to be free is not merely casting off one's chains, but it is to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others."
Yeah. Yeah.
So true freedom, it's not only about your individual rights.
Exactly.
your individual rights. True freedom is actually enhancing and respecting the freedom of others.
Yes.
So the others is involved in freedom. So it's not only about you and what you want and what your rights are. So instead of it being too individualistic, is more altruistic.
Yes. There's a responsibility.
There's a responsibility, yes, which is the African way of being. So when we look into this soul liberation, is to become great enough to realize your spiritual beingness, that you are a spiritual being.
Yes.
Beyond simply tendering to your survival needs and the rat race. We need to go beyond that. So, and realize that now, what is spirituality? Now, this spiritual freedom encompasses all religions.
Yes.
All religions are part of this broader, all embracing, universal spiritual freedom. And you know, once we embrace this spiritual liberation, then we are able to not tolerate. See, I don't want to lose that. You know, you tolerate something that you don't like, essentially.
Right.
You know, it's not about tolerating others. Because when you say you tolerate, you know, you drink a bitter medicine, you just tolerate it.
That's right.
To go down, but in essence, you don't want it. So it's not about, it's more than just tolerance. It's embracing
Yes.
the oneness of humanity. That to me is soul freedom and spiritual liberation.
Yes.
But you see, the problem is right now we are still we are going through spiritual struggles. We are going through spiritual struggles because we really have not embraced spiritual freedom.
Yes. Yes.
You see,
yeah.
We have had political freedom, like we've got now in South Africa in 1994, we cast our first vote, which was euphoric. We had our political freedom. Now we still must have economic freedom.
That's right.
Because economically, the black people are still struggling all over the world, even in the diaspora.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
But the question is now, the political freedom and economic freedom, for it to work, it must be underpinned by spiritual freedom. Because spiritual freedom comes with compassion, comes with caring, comes with understanding, and also tendering to the needs, to the spiritual needs. See, when we're talking about spiritual needs of people, we're not talking about going to church and religion.
Right.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it calls us higher, it calls us up.
It's higher needs.
Yes.
It's the need, the need. I just want to just talk a little bit about spiritual needs here. It's like a need to have meaning and purpose in our lives. The need to have meaning and purpose in our lives. That's a spiritual need. You see, politicians won't be able to give you that.
I know that's right. Yes.
You see, the need to love and to feel loved. That's a need. And the need to feel a sense of belonging. You were just talking now about, calling your ancestors, and how you feel the rush and the ecstasy. You see, all that is part of the need to feel a sense of contributing to the creative process of the universe.
Yes.
Politicians can't give you that.
Yes.
And then the need to feel peace and gratitude. And all these things that I'm talking about, they come from within out.
That's right.
They come from self-identity and self-realization. So the political freedom has to serve the higher needs of spiritual freedom. Now, I talked about hate crimes. I'll stop a little bit here. I talk about, spiritual struggles. Despite the political freedom, right? Despite that for years, some countries have been free, there are still hate crimes.
Yep. One country comes to mind, but go ahead.
Yes. We have, despite the fact that the world has moved, into democracies, we've got most democratic countries in the world, but look at the amount of hate crimes against Black people, hate crimes against the LGBT communities, violence that is happening. Despite all the laws and the legislations that are put in place, consciousness has not risen.
That's right.
Consciousness has not risen to embrace spiritual liberation. When we are able to transcend, greed and corruption and violence, then we are spiritually liberated.
Yes. And we must do that by transcending that within ourselves.
Yes.
So that we become an example of that.
Yes. But Ade, if we are not aware, if we are not taught in mainstream education, if mainstream education is geared towards separation, mainstream education of our children, if it is geared towards a sense of separation and greed and getting, and we're not able to teach the young ones from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The principles of oneness. How are they going to know?
Right. Right. And then we move that into religion. And religion
yes,
teaches
and then we
separation.
move it into religion. But,
Yes.
Essentially, because you see, spirituality is who we are.
That's right.
Spirituality is who we are. Being spiritual is not like being pious. Being spiritual, it's more than just being, righteousness or piety. Being spiritual is actually understanding yourself as a spiritual being.
Mm-hmm.
As a spiritual being, truly going through a human experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To really understand that I am here for a greater purpose.
Indeed.
I'm here just as you are here for a greater purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to see myself beyond color, beyond gender, beyond country. I'm able to see myself as an individualized expression of God here to manifest the glory.
Yes. Yes. Well, one thing I can say is whenever I need to take a vacation and I need someone to do the show for me, I'm going to be calling you. I'll call you to host my show. I'm like, yeah, she got it.
Yeah, I know.
There's so much I want to. I don't know if I'm going to go back much. I think everybody's getting. If there's anything you need clarification on, feel free to share your questions, your comments in the chat room. We'll get to it. If you're on other pages and you have questions, the best place to be is facebook.com/being you podcast. Or if you're on YouTube, then we get your questions there. That's a lot easier too. Because I have so many questions, but not so much for me kind of listening as a listener. Like things, but how do we do that? But we're going to tie it on together. So one of the questions...
Yes, can I just do one thing before you go into questions? Sorry about that. I just wanted to look at these fundamental freedoms, in our constitution. Just fundamental freedoms that I think, there's a we talk about fundamental freedoms in our laws and in our constitution. The freedom of expression, one of the first one. Yes. Now, when we're talking about the freedom of expression, what is it that you are expressing at your highest and the best?
Yes.
Because the freedom of expression is a fundamental freedom. So the first question in Soul Liberate is to really understand, with this fundamental freedom I have, the freedom of expression, what do I choose to express in this incarnation?
Yes.
What do I choose to express? And choose from the best of who we are. Choose from the best version of ourselves. And then we have the freedom of religion. Now, as I said, the freedom of religion is actually innate in the total spiritual freedom. So whatever path you choose, I think it was Gandhi who said, whatever path you choose, be the change that you want to see in the world in your path. There is no separation.
That's right.
Because, even, as you look at the rivers, as you look in nature, there's so many rivers in nature, and all rivers go to the sea. And when they are at the sea, you don't see the division of rivers.
Right.
That this river, in South Africa, we've got the Orange River, we've got the Limpopo River, we've got the Umzimkulu River. All these rivers, they all go into one sea. And so all these different paths, they all go into the one essence. So even as in your freedom of religion, you need to be able to acknowledge the spiritual freedom.
Yeah.
And that is bigger than the freedom of religion. That sees all religions as one, expressions of the divine. And the freedom of thought. I like the freedom of thought because nobody actually tells you what to think.
They try.
Unless you're not using your freedom of thought. And nobody can come into your mind. And that's a spiritual freedom. You see, spiritual freedom is in such a way that you might want to control a person's thought, but you can't catch their thoughts. You really, 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 it's an intangible freedom. And so liberation happens through freedom of thought.
Yes.
We've got people like yourselves, thought leaders who are bringing in new dimensions of higher consciousness. And then we have also the freedom of belief. It is done to you as you believe. The word is as. That is why, that's why I would like us to actually look into our freedom of belief. And lastly, the freedom of peace, peaceful assembly, and the freedom of association. Core fundamental freedoms. I chose to associate with you because of the level of consciousness, the level of vibration, the level of frequencies. And the more of us associate at that level of spiritual liberation, the more we will raise consciousness. You can go ahead with the question.
Now you drop all of that, like, go ahead. It's like, I can't feel my leg. All these truths just melt me. I can't. He said, go ahead. Where? I am where I'm trying to go. I am there. You took me there.
Yes, you are there. You are absolutely there.
Yes. I do have a question from a listener. You said earlier when you said, is it unkulunku? I'm not jacking it up.
Okay.
How do you spell that word?
If you can write it, it will really help.
Okay.
Can you write it down?
The question?
Yes, the question, unkulunkulu. That's what unkulunkulu. Yes.
Okay.
It's UNKULU. KULU, unkulu, NKULU twice. NKULU, NKULU.
Okay, let's try that again. So it's NKKULU, NKULU.
Correct.
Okay. So
yes.
I can't even say it because slow. Yeah, you say it. Like,
yes, that which is greater, greater, and greater.
And it's pronounced. How do you pronounce it again?
Unkulunkulu.
Yes, the one that is greater. There you go, New Jace.
Yes.
There's so many things that you said, and when I listen to when you even break down the freedom of thought, the freedom to believe what we believe, the freedom of expression, I think part of the issue in the world that we live in, especially from a Western perspective, and that's infiltrated the world really, is this idea of one, we start off feeling like we're not free and we have to do some things to please God to get back into that place of freedom. And we must fight to earn our way back to God. So it becomes I have a right to be free. So because I have a right to be free, we're willing to step over somebody else. But when we're talking about spiritual liberation, when we're talking about spiritual freedom, it's not a right, it's a responsibility. So when you have a freedom of expression, there is an understanding that I have the freedom to express, and I am responsible for the words, for how I'm expressing myself and how it's going to influence another. And you know, in that space, it's a different level of consciousness when we're thinking of responsibility versus right. Yes. And I think part of the problem we're having in the world is the government think they got the right to do what they need to do, and those who manage to get a little bit more than the other think they got a right because the government is doing it. So we all running around. It's my right. It's my right. It's my right. Okay, but if we step it up to responsibility, like there is no freedom for me if my brother or sister is in bondage. How would I know my freedom? If people that I love and care about are in bondage, how can I say I'm free? Because I'm connected to them. If I'm connected to them, I realize how can I support them? But if I don't feel connected, then I don't care.
Yes. And that is why I actually, you know, talked about this when Nelson Mandela said to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. So we are interdependent, as opposed to be independent. We're not you know, that's the thing. We forgot about interdependency. Yes. And so and like you are saying, right goes with responsibility. The right goes with responsibility. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead. I'm just yielding.
Yes. No, I'm agreeing to what you have just said. That, you know, you see all this corruption. You know, it's thinking about myself and how I can others. But you say our philosophy of Ubuntu say
can you repeat that again, Rev Thandi?
And just get well.
Can you hear me? You froze for a minute. You said there's I think you froze. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you out and bring you back in because I don't want to miss any crumb that you're dropping. I want to have it all. Let's see. Let's try this, and let's see. Still frozen. Can you hear me? See, those who think they have a right to silence you don't even understand the responsibility that you're bringing. You cannot be silenced. So I'm gonna, I think there's maybe, okay. So we'll bring Rev Thandi back, and New Jays. I'm trying to type it in YouTube, but did you catch the spelling? For whatever reason, it's not sure. Yeah, there you go. It's on the screen. Thank you. But yes, you are listening to Ade Presents Being You, and I'm telling you something that I shared on my Facebook page today while we work to get Rev Thandi back that I think it's worth understanding that we are definitely not separated, that we are connected to all that is, that life is happening through and as us. And when we talk about connecting to the God of our ancestors, ancient wisdom, or your ancestors, it is important that you are never separated. So here's a thing that I want to share. I mean, I know it off the top of my head, but I feel like I want to quote it exactly as I wrote it. I guess I'm going to have to do that because this computer is moving slow. Now, here it is. Here we go. Every cell in your body is an ancestor. Every cell in your body is an ancestor. So think about that. When you recognize that your ancestors live in you, they may not be here in the physical body, and yes, they are. because they are living and expressing their life as you. You understand that your beingness and your being here is because of those who came before you. When you make that kind of connection, chances are you're going to feel some kind of deep suffering, and recognize that your life, be aware that who you are, that you have a gift, you're here to pass something forward, and because of those who came before you, you have a responsibility to pass on more of the good, more of the joy, and even when you make mistakes, because in the spiritual community, sometimes we get so attached to sort of like the good, the light, love and light. I'm a light worker. Well, if you're a light worker, that means you should have no problem being with people that you consider to be in the dark, because you are the light. You can meet with them, and without trying too hard, you raise the vibration. Now, when you recognize that you are a light worker, you value the dark. So anybody that you're calling evil, or however you want to judge them, or less than you, you'll recognize they're just ignorant to their own power. Because to be a light worker means you recognize there's an opposite. And the truth is, the light and the dark, I'm talking about it at its highest form. At its highest form. It's the same thing to God. However, when you are operated in the dark, in the shadow, from a place of separation, you're already living life backwards. Rev Thandi talked about the devil. Look at the devil. Look at it backwards. Lived. When you're living life backwards, you are operated in a devil consciousness. There's nothing out there. So there are lots of people who are living life backwards, and we call them evil. That's spelled backward. Life, live backwards. So all we have to do when we find ourselves having evil thoughts, looking at people doing stupid crap, we hold the vision of right thinking, right action, divine order. Not from an intellectual perspective, like, well, I'm going to be the spiritual one because I'm a light being and I'm just going to see them as a child of God. Yeah, that's good. That's part of it sometimes. But if that gets you to where you really need to be, where in spite of what they're dealing with, you get to be the change you want to see, whether the corruption is happening in the government or in the medical institution or globally, you're holding the vibration of right thinking. Leslie, what's the update on Rev Thandi? See if you can catch her on WhatsApp. Oh, okay. So we can't get her. So maybe. Ooh, I'm going back to Atlanta. The devil is a lie. Oh, we're going to have this conversation. We are going to have this conversation. I'm telling you, we're having this conversation because it's happening right now. Let me see what my brother wrote. Brother Cabello. He said, this is powerful. I am a member of... Yes, you are. I am a member of Rev Thandi's church, and it's a blessing to learn these principles on a weekly basis. Lots of love for Rev and Unity. Yes, Reverend Thandi. Check out her website address. Is Unity Love Light. Let me make sure I'm saying it correctly. Let me pull it up. Unity Love Light. There you go. unitylovelight.co.za. unitylovelight.co.za or ZA, depending on where you are in the world. I was hopefully we'll get Reverend Thandi back. What time is it? Oh, we still got time. We got time. So those of you who want Reverend Thandi back, hold the vision. See her back here. See the connection strong. But there's so many things Reverend Thandi talked about when she talked about the God of our ancestors, African ancestors, is a God of oneness. There is no separation. It's in our words, the words that we speak. It's everywhere. It's how we communicate. As a Yoruba man, our culture is always about God. When you ask somebody, things are slightly different now, but normally it's like, how are you doing? Oh, we're looking to God. We're holding the vision. Everything is related, reflected, referred back to the Creator. Thank God. Because we're part of it. We're part of God. And if we want to be spiritually liberated and be free, even in the midst of the bullshit, you have to know who you are. Loved how Reverend Thandi started it up. Reverend Thandi, you ready? We ready to bring you back? So we just had an intermission. So now, well, everybody come back from your bio break and getting coffee and drink because part 2 is about to start.
Yes, there we go.
Okay. You were so powerful, the connection couldn't take it. The vibration was too high.
Okay, am I dead?
If you move a little bit to your right, yes. Because the thing is backward, yeah. Maybe you can adjust there you go.
Yes, we had to change some transmission. Sorry for the break in transmission.
You know what? You were dropping so much truth that we all needed time for that to sink in. But you were so tapped in, you didn't hear the nudge. You didn't feel the nudge from the inside. Say, daughter, slow down a minute. They need to break it down.
Thank you, Ade. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But yeah, we can continue with the question.
Yeah, so what I want to ask is, even with everything that you shared, because life is consciousness.
Yes.
And what people are receiving from this conversation is based on where they are. And wherever we are in consciousness is where we are in consciousness. And sometimes I also know that people need help in integrating the spiritual truth with what they're living on a daily basis. So let's talk about South Africa for a minute, where there's a lot going on. I know a little about it, but you live there. You're from there. And there's a lot of different gender-based violence. Those of us who be in the spiritual community saying that is the truth, but sometimes we can't quite reconcile what we're doing to one another. What would you share with people with how to integrate spirituality with humanity so that we can bring about the healing that wants to be revealed?
Okay. Thank you, Ade. And I think let us, that question you asked about gender-based violence. Yes. Yes, it is. It's actually, we call it another pandemic, in this country. We've got the COVID-19 pandemic, and we've got this pandemic of gender-based violence. And it's coming from an unhealed masculinity. This toxic masculinity, the patriarchal system. You see, the divine feminine. I'm now going to go back to who we truly are. We started by saying we identify with who we truly are.
Yes.
Right? And so within our very own souls, we have the divine and the feminine within our very own souls. You know, the book of Genesis says, male and female made he them. Doesn't say males and females. Right. Male and female. We've got both qualities, attributes of male and female. And now, the male and female attributes, wherever you see them in nature, you know, we've got the yin and the yang. We've got the ebb and the flow. You know, we've got the systole and the diastole, even in our heartbeat. You see, there is a balance in nature of the male and the female. And what has happened with the patriarchal system has rendered an imbalance of the male and female. The imbalance. Now, this imbalance is brought about, like I say, the patriarchal system that we brought into. Now, you see, nature in itself is balanced. And you cannot, the universe does not work against itself. The universe is balanced. And so the divine feminine, the feminine has to rise to its rightful space. The feminine has to rise and is rising to its rightful, true, natural space. And so the masculine, the toxic masculine that is unhealed, is threatened by the rising of the divine feminine. And it's not it's a question of aggression and wanting in control that brings rise to this violence. So the healing, you know, you see, it's not the responsibility of women only to fight against gender-based violence. It's the responsibility of the male.
That's right.
The masculine.
More men, that's right.
More men to actually embrace within themselves the divine feminine. And, you know, this notion of seeing that the masculine is in charge and, you know, it's balanced. And
it kind of goes back to what you're saying, though, Rev Thandi. Yes. It goes back to what you're saying earlier about our concept of God. So if we believe God as a man is all powerful, so we internalize that error thinking and believe we're powerful over everybody else, children, women, and everything. We just go around abusing and hurting.
Yes. Yeah. And abusing. And also the allegories. You know, I find it quite strange that, you know, in our African folklore and stories, you know, we tell truth by stories and allegories. And when it comes to the allegory of Adam and Eve, we take it literally. And women, you see, it stays in our subconscious mind that it is actually the fault of Eve. Eve is responsible for man's downfall. And even that is affecting the subconsciously. You know, it's the woman's fault. She has to be named. And it's in the scriptures. That is why I'm saying just that concept. Of taking that allegory literally in itself contributes to gender-based violence because she's the temptress. She's responsible for the downfall of man. And she was an afterthought. You know, an afterthought?
Right. Like,
who takes an afterthought seriously? You know, God had already finished creating, and afterwards, she said, you know what? Let me come up with something. You know, from the rib.
Yes.
You know, it's a spare rib.
Spare him. That has a whole new. It's like, yeah, I guess I need company. Why not hear a little bit of me? I mean, and we believe that. And there are people,
and you know what?
Intellectuals. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. And you see, this whole thing of thinking that a woman is just a sperry, and it can be boxed, and you know. So all that is it's just false consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, false consciousness.
Yes. Yeah.
And this false consciousness must begin with an awareness. We have to awaken. You know, that is why honestly we have to teach and to go beyond. You know, this the literist interpretation, because it disempowers our women. Our women are disempowered from Genesis already.
From the beginning, from the get-go.
Yes, from the get-go.
You come in disempowered.
Yes.
So much so that we can't even believe that Jesus has a mother. It's like, oh, hell no, Jesus didn't have a mother. No, of course not.
So you see, this empowerment, this empowerment of women is happening even at the religious level.
Yes.
The disempowerment is, and the men actually have to be able to embrace within themselves attributes of the divine feminine.
Yes.
You know, when we see a man crying, oh, don't be sissy. You know, you know, what is that? Instead of honoring, you know, your attributes, we bring them down.
Yeah.
And a great healing, and also this gender, this GBV thing, it's a mental health problem and it's a spiritual problem. No amount of legislation, you know, South Africa, you know, we've got a lot of legislation, but no amount of legislation can change people's attitudes.
Yes.
No amount of legislation can raise consciousness.
That's right. The personal choice.
The personal choice.
The personal choice.
Yes. Legislation is necessary, you know, for punishment, for retribution, to stop it. But you know, the long-term solution is rising consciousness. Like you said, consciousness is life. Yes. What we see what we see playing out in society is the result of our collective thinking. Exactly. Is the result of collective consciousness.
Yes. And we need to get off our own high horse and think that we are not contributing to what we see in the world. And when we are willing to say, maybe I am just be able to consider it, to get curious, we can start to change things. There's two things I wanted to say before we release the conversation. One is following that school of thought about Eve being blamed for the downfall of mankind. And what you're saying about men really tapping into themselves. With that kind of narrative unconsciously, it makes sense that as a man, we don't always want to go to that feminine side because we feel like that feminine will destroy us.
Yes.
And the feminine power it destroys, but it doesn't just destroy, because after destruction, there's a recreation.
Absolutely.
There's a recreation.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
That dying, it's hard. And these concepts or these ideas that we're sharing, when we hear it, something resonates in our hearts and our minds about it. And to really know it and be grounded in it, I believe that we must take actions. So speaking of actions, are you willing to share the sort of action you took at the Unity camp that we talked about. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. Many years ago, the first time you were there, and you had to, because that is so powerful. I mean, people need to know that. I know if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But I just think that is allowing truth to guide your action and your step. And here you are today. If you're willing to talk about it, you can come back and talk about it. But sometimes we get too caught up in fear. So are you willing to talk about it?
Yes, sometimes we really get caught up in fear. Yes.
So you were, go ahead. I'll let you tell the story.
Okay, so you really want me to talk about it?
Yes. And you know why? Well, because there are many reasons. Some of it I don't know intellectually. I can say, oh, this is why I want. Some I know, but at the same time, even in the spiritual community, we perpetuate this separatism, this sort of superiority. I did a show one time a few months ago when we call it the whiteness of spirituality. There's still this sort of whiteness promoted, sometimes unconsciously. And it's important for African descended people to show up. And I just love that act, which
to be bold.
To be bold. So speaking of bold, tell us about your story about Unity Camp in Missouri.
Yes, in Missouri. Yeah, no. Let me share that. That was way back in 1999. And it was my first week. Actually, it's not even, it was my first day. And I was going to study as a unity minister from South Africa. And South Africa, we just had independence 3 years into South African independence. No, actually 5 years, because it was 1999. And then I decided to go to the activity center on Sunday, to share, to see how is it going and how do they worship, the worship service. And then there's a guest register as you enter the door. It's a beautiful activity center. As you enter the door, there's a guest register. And in the guest register, there's also flags of different countries. And in my curiosity, obviously, I want to see the South African flag because I want to go and sign my name under there. And when I open the guest register, I find that they still have the old South African flag. The 50th.
5 years later. Yeah.
5 years later, headquarters, well,
of unity.
And I would find them, yes. And standing in your truth, boldness, I took it off. I ripped it out. And I had not even gone to a class. And I've already ripped out what is not representing my people.
Or what they might describe as an angry black woman from South Africa.
As an angry black woman. Exactly. Then there was rumors went around. There's this very angry woman from South Africa who went into the activity center and ripped off a page, because you see, it didn't, for somebody who's in the US, they just couldn't understand the profoundness and the depth of that act.
Yes.
And then I said, I will leave it blank. I will leave it blank. I ripped it off and I was called on Monday. I was put on consent. When they put you on consent, they are already concerned about the type of person that you are.
And the funny thing about it is you're in a place called unity, right? I mean, and this is not a judgment of unity for those who go to Unity Center, but to understand sometimes the way we think and the things we put in place that we don't think about until somebody who understands. But anyway, they put you on concern because they were concerned about
you. They were concerned that maybe they are bringing in a revolutionary, you know. But you see, there's a spiritual revolution, you know, even as it doesn't use violence, but it's just an act.
Yes.
That shows where you stand in your truth.
Yes.
And sometimes it calls for boldness on our part. You know? And so I actually waited and sent money home for them to bring me a South African flag to come and put it there. And that was a great statement because who else could do it except me, because I was there at that time.
Yes.
And I was called there at that time. But here's what I'm trying to say here. Many of us, you know, in our everyday lives, we will get opportunities. No matter how small they are, you'll get an opportunity to stand on the truth that you know.
Yes.
And you need to have the courage, the boldness, and the inner strength to say no. To say no. See, a spiritual activist, a spiritual revolutionary, use peaceful methods, but you have the courage to stand up for the truth that you know.
Yes. Yes.
And even as a Christian, I would say the literal interpretation of Eve, it's actually gender-based violence. Yeah. Yes. And we need to understand what is the metaphoric meaning so that we do not perpetuate this whole situation of gender-based violence.
Right.
And we also need, and our men also, let me say, those souls who have chosen to express in this incarnation as men.
Yes. Yes.
They have the responsibility to raise consciousness.
Yes.
They have the responsibility to begin within themselves to embrace the feminine nature.
Yes.
They have the responsibility to bring up their boys and their girls, their children, with the understanding that we are one, with the understanding that a woman is not here because he's a spare rib of a man.
Yeah, like a spare tire that you use every now and then.
Exactly, exactly.
I won't be doing my job if I don't ask this question. So,
yes.
When you say the story of Adam and Eve is being used to perpetuate gender-based violence,
yes,
what is the metaphoric message in the Adam and Eve? What do we need to remember? What do people need to consider to start to bring balance to that story, as opposed to a woman being a spare rib of a man?
Yes, like I said, in our African culture, actually within the parables of Jesus, you can see that he's an African man. He was an African because he teaches by parables,
Right?
by stories.
Yeah.
You see, we teach by story, we teach with parables. There's so many stories that we can share, but essentially it doesn't mean that this story literally did happen. And so the Eve represents our soul nature, the feminine, the soul. And the Adam is represents, it's a symbolism, it's an allegory, represents the intellect. You see, the masculine, the intellect. And so it is the sensory nature of the soul. You see, the soul is pivotal. You know, we body, mind, and then the soul, the spirit, body, and soul. Now, if the soul is more geared towards materialism, if the soul is more geared towards materialism, it becomes less spiritual. But if the soul is more geared to a higher consciousness, our spiritual self, the soul, the person becomes more spiritual. So it's the interacting of those. So it's the soul that is geared towards materialism that brings out down the intellect with it. And we see it playing in our society today. You know, the lure of materialism, corruption, the greed, the soul becomes so, that soul that is lured, you know, by sensation, by materialism, brings down the whole personality.
I'm not even going to mess with what you just said. I'm just leave it. I'm not even going to break it down. I'm not going to rephrase it because it needs to just stand.
You know what, Ade? I think we need to do classes on and it's very African, by the way. It's very African. I think we need to do classes on interpretations, metaphysical interpretation, because even in law, you know, we talk about the letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
Yes.
Isn't that so?
Yes.
And when we talk about, you know, the spirit of the law, we're talking about the intention behind the legislation, the intention of the legislator. So why is it that when it comes to our scriptures, we don't understand that there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law?
Yes. Yeah, and the interesting thing about the stronghold of Christianity in that continent in Africa, it's fascinating. But what I will say is, well, more of a question, really, not so much what I would say is, what would you say to South Africans who are listening now or later about spiritual liberation and how to apply that in their lives, but maybe some of them are dealing with this misuse of power, the abuse of power. And they're hearing what you're saying, it feels good. And they're like, I hear what you're saying, Rev, but politicians are corrupt. And you know, there is no money, we're suffering. What would you say? What would you impart to people's hearts and mind to start to shift not necessarily shift the power, but the people become bold enough to take actions that are in alignment with what their soul is asking for?
You know, I think as South Africans, we have overcome much. We have overcome a lot. We are a resilient, powerful people. We brought down, can you hear me well?
I think the microphone is dropped. If you just have one side, it's fine.
I'm happy. I think we have overcome. You know, we have overcome the apartheid system. Many people, many of us, you know, have died. Blood has been shed. We've had our ancestors. We've had great leaders. We've had people who have died to liberate our country. South Africa is actually one of the last countries, you know, we actually had double oppression because we were first colonized by the English, you know, the British settlers. And when they had just thought they finished with us, and then came the apartheid system. So we had a double dose of discrimination. And here we still stand. And so what I would say is we are overcomers. Corruption is like a lion, you know, that is roaring, ravishing between us. But what I want to say is we are greater than that lion. We are greater. We are a great nation. And we have, and I truly believe this, we have soul. I don't know how to put it, but South Africans have soul. You must hear us sing.
Yes. Yes.
You know, you must hear us sing. You know, we just have soul. And I think that soul of the South Africans will get us through. Will get us through. For now, you know, the lure of materialism has played havoc in our political system. And politics has divided us. And more than we actually realize. But when we recognize ourselves as one nation, you know, when we truly recognize ourselves as one nation, we will definitely overcome. You know, our national anthem, the original version. I like the original version. You know, there's the original version and the version of the New South Africa. I respect the version of the New South Africa, but I love the original version. Because the original version is a prayer. A prayer that says, God bless Africa and all its children. A prayer that calls upon the Holy Spirit to fall. A prayer that calls for the Holy Spirit to come upon its children. And I really believe in the prayer of our national anthem. That's what I want to say to our people, that we are overcomers.
Yes.
And we have soul. And we are greater than what is happening.
Indeed.
Yes. And let's carry, you know, also, you know, our spirit of Ubuntu will carry us, even if some of us seem to have forgotten. But our spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of our ancestors, the spirit of our ancestors, and the lessons of our ancestors will carry us.
Well, so I wrote something down that I was going to ask you, and you spoke to it.
With this, but I'll put them there.
If you can see the one on your right, you can let that go as long as one is hanging up.
It's hanging. Oh my God, they don't see.
So you can release that one, but the other one is fine as long as the microphone is close to you. You should be fine. Yeah, you can release the one on the right, and the other one is fine. No, it's fine, no problem. For me, you're dropping so much truth. I'm not even bothered about that. I just want to make sure I hear you. So before we let you go, I have a request. I have a request. Would you be willing? Can I ask that you offer a prayer? Specifically, I'd like to hear it in your language. But if you want to do it in English too, that's fine. But my preference is for you to do it in English and your language before we release the conversation.
You know, Ade, I think it will be more powerful for me if I say it in my language.
Yes, we're ready.
Now, might not hear, but I'll take the simple one, right? I would do the Lord's Prayer in my language. Okay.
And you know what you said earlier about the letter of the law and the spirit of the spirit of the, what is it? The spirit of the law. No, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Even if you do the Lord's Prayer and other prayer, we are going to feel it on a soul level. So don't worry about us understanding it, because the heart knows.
It's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law.
That's right.
So now we go into the spirit of it. And you know what? As it is in heaven, so it is on earth. You see? Yes. So let's go into the spirit. Let's just go into spirit. and feel at one with all that there is. Baba wethu wasezulwini, maliphathe ngokungcwele igama lakho. Umbuso wakho mawufike, intando yakho mayenziwe emhlabeni njengasezulwini. Siphe namhlanje isinkwa sethu semihla ngemihla. Sithethelele izono zethu njengoba sibathethelela abasunayo. Ungasingenisi ekulingweni kodwa usisindise kubo. Ngoba wakho umbuso namandla nobukhosi kuze kube phakade. Amen. So phonsela amehlo ethu ezintabeni. La kuvela khona usizo lwethu. Usizo lwethu livela kuwe Nkosi uNkulunkulu Simakade Ngcwele. Phakamisa Nkosi uNkulunkulu Simakade Ngcwele ngalelanga abantwana bakho baseNingizimu Afrika. Sigcwalise Nkosi uNkulunkulu Simakade ngobuntu bakho obungcwele. Ukuthi sizazi ukuthi singobani Nkosi uNkulunkulu Simakade. Zivelekise Nkosi uNkulunkulu Simakade ebantwaneni bethu. Sithi Nkosi sazi ukuthi sibuyaphi siyaphi. Sazi indlela yakho yeqiniso manje naphakade. Amen. Makube njalo. Kuze kube phakade. Amen. Thank you.
Ah, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I love and appreciate you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for keeping what it means to be African alive. Thank you for reminding us of our culture, of our tradition, and reminding us that we are overcomers, that we have victory running through our veins, that the God of our ancestors is a powerful God, and we're a part of that. Thank you, Rev Thandi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the work that you do. And God bless all the listeners.
Yes.
All the viewers. I love you, I appreciate you, and I thank God for you.
Is there anything you want to share that you're up to, that you want listeners to come find out about you, or just go to your website? Maybe you got some workshops coming up or anything like that.
Yes, we've got some classes coming up, and we will put them up on our website. And the classes are basically on exactly what I was talking about, on interpretation, metaphysical interpretations. Our classes are going to be called Spiritually Speaking with Reverend Thandi. Spiritually Speaking with Reverend Thandi. So Ade, I will give you all the details also. Just watch out for our classes, which will be coming from the last week of May.
Okay.
The last week of May, we'll be beginning classes on Spiritually Speaking with Reverend Thandi. The classes will be online, and it's for us to raise consciousness and also to understand ourselves, who we are, and also to understand how are we using our freedom of expression.
Yes. Well, keep me updated. I'll definitely be happy to promote it. And then after Spiritually Speaking with Reverend Thandi, we can do ancient wisdom with Reverend Thandi. Say that again. Can you hear me?
Yes. No, what I'm saying is, please, I will keep you posted.
Yes.
And if we want to grow, in consciousness, if we want to grow in consciousness, if we want to liberate our souls, from the shackles of enslavement, because now slavery is still continuing in another form.
Yes, indeed.
So we need to, so we need to come together as African people and raise our consciousness, be bold, understand where our inner strength is coming from. Because we have inner strength. We are strong, we are bold, we are courageous, we are overcomers.
Yes, we are.
And so be it.
Yes.
Ashe.
Ashe. It is done.
Yeah.
Woo. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Do it all.
And I apologize for the yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Thandi. You're a blessing. You are a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not even going to try and say anything else after that because Reverend Thandi said it all. Check out her website, unitylovelight.co.za or ZA. Z if you're in America, Z if you're in Europe or in Africa. I'm fed. It's done. It's complete. I want to invite you to check out my website, lifecoachade.com, lifecoachade.com, to deepen the experience as well as keep up with the representing our ancestors, representing our stories. There's another event coming up May 15th and another one June 19th. So make sure you're there. Let's grow together and let's deepen and embody everything and more of what Reverend Thandi brought to us. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. Join me tomorrow evening if you're in America, and Ricky Byers, Soul Fulfilling, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and 2 a.m. UK time. All right. Thank you, Leslie, for all you're doing behind the scenes. Thank you, Kathy, for being here. Kwali. I'm going to be a punk and say Stephen, because Stephen, I don't want to mess up your name because I can't pronounce it. But once you tell me, I'll get better at it. Like Reverend Thandi's last name, Nhlengetwa. I'm getting better. I do need to work on my throat, but I haven't gotten there yet. But I need to work on it. So, I just need time to practice. And what else? Okay, got it. And New Jays, thank you for being here. Lethus, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. And everybody else Marilyn, who joined us. If I missed your name, don't take it personal. What did Monica say? Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. Anyway, thank you so much. We are releasing this show, and all I want to say to you is, may you remember who you are. You are powerful. And we are out. Peace and blessings.